Welcome back to another edition of Real Estate Roundtable. I'm Rob Moore from Echo Properties, and what's going on to my left here? As always, I'm joined by Echo Properties owner Jeff Lichtenstein. Jeff, you're playing with some. It looks like some filters here. What is that? You're a
I like
bug?
these new Zoom filters.
This is new, folks. We just figured this out this morning. There was an update, and now you can add filters to your Zoom calls. Makes it a little more fun. Um,
I
Jeff the Pirate. So Jeff, we're going to talk about two faces of homes. W-
Yeah, and it's exactly like this. Like there's two faces. You know, but a home is kind of like the same type of thing. Um, if you think about it, let me get out of the microwave. A home is looks different. Like today's a great day to look at a home because it's rainy and it's not a pretty day.
a great day, you said?
What's that?
You said it's a great day to look at a home?
Yeah, it's the opposite. Think of it that way. You want to look at a home in an ugly day because when you're looking at a home at its best, you're not going to see it at its worst. You're not going to see, its morning breath type of thing. So, it's a nice way to say it. But when you see a home, the real estate agent on the other side, if they know what they're doing, has and the seller has all the advantages. They're playing with it. They're listening to feedback. So they have it staged. Lights are on. Window shades are open everywhere. Different things of it are staged. And there's better times to see a house depending on the exposure of the day or noise patterns that people don't realize.
So what are
But
some
the
of
the seller's really aware of those things, but the buyer is not. So the seller has all the advantages when it comes to this thing.
so what are some of the things you should be looking at when you're I guess going to a home?
Well, the first thing that I do, and I think of it this way, it's like that Seinfeld episode.
Let's
It's kind of like Two Face, and there was the one face, and then there was the other, face. And then Jerry did that thing like and then some people saw it in one light, some people in another light, and that's exactly how a home can show. And you need to see it in both lights before you get married to the home. Um, the, so there's a number of things. I'll go and we wrote a blog on this, so I'll try to follow that pattern.
And that
Um,
blog's in the post. So if people want to click on that
you did
link,
put it in there.
yeah, it's
Okay,
in
good.
here.
So one of them is you want it's noise, and especially if it's by any kind of a road, 95, the Turnpike, or a major artery, like PGA Boulevard or Military Trail. And sometimes you could see a house at noon, or 11 o'clock, and you'll hear nothing. But towards rush hour in the morning, you'll hear something. You also need to be aware of spaces that, like, you'll have homes that have I know some homes I can think of just for an example in some subdivisions that are really far away from a 95 or the Turnpike, but there's so much open space that the noise totally carries like over a lake or something else. So, and if there's no other homes to block it, then in the backyard you may pick up noise at different hours of the day. So, really being cognizant of it. And then there's some events like people don't. There's a raceway that's out in by the Beeline, between PGA Boulevard and Indian Town Road, kind of by near where Calusa is. So in that, I think it's Saturday morning, you get all these motorcycles that go and that go by there, and all of a sudden, you got a whole a different surprise that's on you that you're not that's not expecting. So yeah, you don't want that exactly in your backyard. Or if you do like it, you need to be
Maybe
aware it exists.
Yeah, maybe you're a fan of it. This image is actually an image from Pocono, up in Pennsylvania, and there are homes close by Pocono Raceway. It leads. You go through the woods, I call it, the country, the woods, and then it opens up, and there's this huge NASCAR track. So some people like it because they like NASCAR, and they can easily get to the course without paying for parking and all that stuff. So
Did you read about that guy in the Indy 500 who did a tree house this year? He's the only fan who saw the Indy 500.
get out. No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's because of social, because of the whole
Yeah.
COVID thing. There was no fans allowed. So then usually they get five hundred
Yeah,
thousand people.
a lot.
So this guy, he like paid one of his neighbors who had a better view than him like $100, and he built a tree house. This is the guy, and he was way above the stadium so he can see it. He's been there. He's like been like going for like 35 years or something.
Whatever it
So
takes, I guess, right? Whatever it takes.
yeah, so some residual income with noise and stuff. Another thing that you need to do is you need to see it during different exposures. So what that means is if you have, and in real estate we call a western exposure means that the sun is setting in the backyard and you're getting pretty sunsets, and you're also getting the sun during its most intense period of time. An eastern exposure is the opposite. The sun's rising, in the morning, and that's your backyard setting. So it's always in real estate slang talk when realtors are talking to clients or for each other, they're always asking what the exposure is in the back, at least in Florida. But in the MLS, and when you look on these sheets, the exposure will always say of actually what it is on the front door, just to confuse the heck out of everybody. But the back exposure is what you really are most concerned with. So if you go to see a house that has a western exposure, and you're going to get there at a certain hour, you're going to see a beautiful sunset, and during parts of the day you're going to get good sun in the house. But maybe around 5-6 o'clock at night, 5 you're going to get the most, or 4 you're going to get really intense heat that's coming in, and you have to see if you can live with that. You have to see if the overhang is large enough, or all these other different things like that. But sometimes it's not. And then that will tell you. Conversely, like an eastern exposure will show best, at certain hours, kind of around 11 or 10:30, or sometimes not really early in the morning because the sun's beating through the opposite way. But then you want to go to like an eastern exposure house and see it at like 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, because it could be darker, altogether. So going through these is really important, because you're going to see different types of exposures depending on depending on what hour you're going to be looking at these things.
And is there I'm sorry, sharing this video right now, but is there a special, a top exposure that gets you more, it'll, more money?
If I think personally that the best exposure is a southern exposure, because a southern exposure, you're getting elements of west, but you're getting sun on your house all day, and everybody wants light, bright, open, and spacious, and where the sun's coming in has a lot to do with it. Now that you can correct a lot of things in different homes. Like for example, we have French doors, and we have a western exposure, and I like my western exposure, and there's drawbacks to it too, as like I was saying. But we have in the front we've got these French doors that brings in all sorts of light from the east coming into the house. And same thing in our dining room, we've got a set of windows. So we're really picking up both east and west in some ways, and then we have a lot of light that's coming in off of the northern side of the house. But you want to see how the backyard plays too, because the backyard's going to look completely different during different times of the day. Southern though, you're really getting sun all day long. Like in our house, we're western, we still pick up the southern sun on the pool, or a lot of it, but a southern exposure is going to pick up everything. The most interesting exposure you got to be careful of is a northern exposure. The northern exposure gets no direct sun on the backyard at all. So if the house has really got to be built far enough back in order for it to get proper sun.
Interesting. So what are give me some other faces of the home that you should be looking at, you should be looking for?
Now hang on one second.
He's getting up, trying to find us something. Is he getting a mask? What is he doing?
Yeah, the lights are off. So the lights, when you have lights off or you don't have lights on you, it doesn't show nearly as well. So this is another face. So lights have a big part of it. So best thing you can do as a buyer is turn all the lights off. I had one home that had no direct sunlight coming in the backyard, meaning you couldn't see blue sky because everything is built up, is built up too high. So in that case, it was, you disguise it. You get a lot of floor lamps. So, there's a whole bunch of staging that a seller needs to do in that situation where they've got to bring natural light in. You can paint the walls, more of a white, white or off-white color. You can't go darker. Furniture, darker. But a lot of lights on can disguise what it looks like when the lights are off. Because when you're in your home, you're living with the lights off a lot of times. You don't want every, light bulb on in the house. Or some people don't like that. Don't like that. When you turn the lights off, you're going to get a good idea. I mean, even here, I'm in my home. We've got a cloudy, overcast, some rainy, and I've got all the lights off, and I've still got good light coming in. Mm-hmm. So that's a sign of this is a good house to buy because I can live that way. Some homes are just as dark as a dungeon with it. And it could be conversely. You may not like light. There's a good 10-15% of the population that likes it on more on the darker, type of side. And then there's different rooms are going to show differently. But
they always say with even with video, lighting is key.
Light makes a huge difference. These are just some overhang lights that I have on now, but you're going to see it very differently. So turning all the lights off is one thing you can do to get a good feel for how a house is going to look.
That's I guess, and if you see that, you can, if you want more light, you can, I guess, try to find ways to, you said lighten the paint, not that that's going to bring you more light, but if you have a darker color, the room's darker, you can.
It makes a huge difference actually. We'll go through anything that's dark. So if you have a home that has a lot of heaviness to it, that the colors are heavy, there's lots of golds or burgundies or darker colors, it can make a huge difference on how much light it is. So like a lot of times what we'll do is or big pictures or big furniture can make differences. So on the staging side of things, if there's too much in there, a lot of the goal is to take a lot of that out and paint, and you can improve it dramatically and make it more light, open, spacious. For a seller, there are big dollars involved in this.
Well, you
can have these wild. It can look, if it looks different, somebody will buy it.
I was going to ask you that. When it comes to the seller's perspective, and you walk into their home, and you try to be as nice as possible, right? You're looking at their home, and their walls are painted. Maybe they like purple, and their one room is just all purple, and they love it. They just love purple, but maybe that's not the right color to be presented.
Well, the way some people have a problem with it because they put money into it, and then they have pride issues. So I always tell a client we have these 4 niches in our house, in our dining room, off of our family room kitchen area, and the ceilings go about 18 high, and we threw all this paint at it. We had an artist come over, and we had all sorts of different fun little things when the kids were little. And it maybe cost us $3,500 or $4,000 or whatever. And my mother comes in the house and she thinks it's cool. Maybe she was just being nice. My father looks at it and goes, "Oh." He goes, "You don't like it, do you?" No. And but that's okay. A house is, you're meant to live in your house. You're meant to enjoy it.
Sure.
And these days we actually have it very different. But we enjoyed it for a lot of those years. Just because you put money into it doesn't mean you're going to get out to it. A lot of people do murals, or they do wallpaper or paint, or different colors. You're doing that for your own enjoyment. You're not going to get money out of that. But when it comes time to do it, you've got to neutralize it. The other thing too is that you get a lot of times artistic people can get offended at things because they've got really good vision, and non-artistic people can't take a red palette and paint something on it that needs to be white for them to see their ways that they want color. So if they're a blue-yellow person, there's red on it.
Sure.
They're just lost to what to do with it. So the more that it's an empty palette has a lot to do with it. So there's you can't really get offended. Once you're selling your house, you've got to go into a marketing mode. You've enjoyed it, and now you're a marketer, and you're trying to sell your house, because when you leave, who cares if they don't like it or they don't like it? You're not going to be thinking about that 3 years from now. It's a little, it's a Tom Cruise show with money, type of thing.
And I guess that's huge, because if you want to sell your home, you don't want it sitting around. Just follow those simple little steps, and it could make the difference of it sitting or actually being sold.
Right, but a seller has all the advantages to start, because they've been talking about this. They're going through the feedback. They're straightening it up. They're declutterizing. All that from a seller's perspective A buyer needs to see it though, how it really does look as much as possible, without the where because when you walk in, it's going to be very different. There's another way to look at a home is I like to look at it through the garage. Only time you're going to walk through the front door is when you're seeing it and when you're buying it.
Whoa, look at that garage.
That's really it. Whose is that?
That's an image I found. That's not my garage. I promise you, that's not my garage. That's someone's garage who just threw stuff in there. So I guess if you're holding an open house or people are coming by and they see this, they're leaving. They're out.
But when you're going through a house with a garage, you're seeing a couple of them. One that's going to be your entry into the home. So you might as well look at it that way because you're not really looking at it the first way. So at some point, that's a good thing to do. The other thing is you may discover something that doesn't work for you. For example, what happens if the kitchen is across the house and you're older, or you have trouble with groceries or things like that? Is that going to bother you? You can figure that out. You're not paying attention to all those types of things when you first are looking at a house. So I think going through it how you normally are going to go through it is pretty important.
Yeah, we need, this person needs to do some little organizing. Hire an organizer, throw out the junk, declutter, I guess. And then what about windows, Jeff? When it comes to windows, you talked about windows in the blog.
A good real estate agent will have everything open, although sometimes there's a strategic strategy to keep blinds. Like there's certain homes, like I'll take blinds and I'll have them halfway open and not. It's because of what's in the back there. So you may be looking at something, you may be looking at a neighbor's house, but you want it somewhat open. So the realtor and the seller are going through a lot of pains to figure out how to strategically show it best. I think you wanted to see it both ways, because if you're going to live with the house and you like the blinds down, or you're not, there's a neighbor on one side and that bothers you, you need to be aware of all these different things. So I like to see it both ways. It's going to be open best, open the windows, open the sliders. Sometimes people have it open at a certain time of day and they're closing it. You want to see it from different angles, and it will also make a house much brighter and open. And I remember we had bought a townhouse years ago when I was back in Chicago, and we bought it, and I loved the lake view. There was condos on the other side, and then Veronica at night or during the day is closing up some blinds up. I'm like, why are you doing that? So like, I can see inside from across the way. And so there's a lot of that goes on where you're not thinking about different things. So you want to really concentrate and think how you're living there and how it's going to be seen.
For instance, if you have this window, again, generic image behind me here, and it looks out and it looks like there's a lot of, just trees or shrubbery. If that was let's just say there's a house right next to you, and that looks right into the neighbor's kitchen. And you're basically, when you go to your window, you look across and you see right into your neighbor's kitchen. Is that something where you would suggest the homeowner maybe put up some bushes or shrubbery to block that view? I mean, you really don't want
landscaping is, we're going to do this on another episode, but landscaping is the most expensive piece of staging, and it's the best return on your investment for staging. You get more out of landscaping. A good landscaper landscapes, and especially for staging purposes, you're landscaping from the inside out. So you want to come into the house and look at what somebody's looking at for different views. So you could look at something off of your kitchen, or like I'll give you an example. In our master bedroom, we've got another house to the other side beyond the window. So I put strategically up 2 trees. One of them, they were each kind of thin, but then they
blossomed out.
They blossomed out in there, but there's enough still where we're getting light and it's blocking out the other house. Mm-hmm. And then you want it set back enough where it's not right on top of it like it's Poltergeist, where the tree's coming into the house. So there's different strategic things. Sometimes also that's why a house isn't selling. When we bought our house, our whole area was it was like overgrown in the entryway by the entry and where the dining room was, so it looked bad. But in the back, we could see right into our neighbor's yard. And we planted some Eureka palms on one side, and the other one, all the bushes were way up front. So we cut those back and got more breathing space. and opened it up more. There's different things you can do if you visualize, what landscaping looks like. So a lot of times you'll have to do that. Then what sellers will do too is, because they don't want to spend any money on it, and rightfully so, but they'll get things that are too small, which don't do anything. So they'll buy something that's small, but it's still not blocking the house, and go, well, they told me in a year it's going to grow. Yeah, but you're selling your house now. They can't, once a buyer sees something,
Yep.
very hard to get it out of their head. It's like, well, that house is there. It doesn't really matter.
Well, you used to always talk about. I remember you always talked about the view. Like you walk into a house and you would sink down and you would say, "What do you see?" And they would say,
Right.
So you did visualization and seeing something.
On a staging thing, the first thing that I do, and I'll bring, because I think it's the most important, is I'm 5'11". So when I walk in the house, I have a certain viewpoint of it from being 5'11". Somebody who's 5'4" has a completely different viewpoint of it. And then when you look out, especially in Florida, where we're looking out typically over, living rooms or great rooms, and then the view is right in the back, your patio, your pool. So if you have furniture that's high, or things that are blocking it, that can make a huge impact on it. Because sometimes you don't even see the patio or the pool. You see across the way to another home. You don't see your view. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it's clearing that space out and making everything more open. I think it has more to do, that particular piece of staging, than anything. Getting off topic a little bit, but sure. In terms of a return.
And then you talk about turning on the faucets, turning on the shower when you get to these homes. Why are we turning on the shower? We're not showering. What are we doing? Why are we turning it on?
Well, we had one client who did, but that's a Will Bean story. He went in the swimming pool. You want to see if the pressure is good, and sometimes they haven't taken out the safety, the pressure, but how much pressure you're getting. I've seen, there's some homes that just don't have that, or it needs to be corrected. But it can be a big issue. We were in one home and always had bad, water pressure, and you never were getting a really strong shower, and there wasn't much you can do about it. So you're if you're taking a shower every day, or taking baths or those things, you're doing that a lot during the day. You're using your faucet, a lot during the day. You should see how long it takes. How long does it take to, for the hot water to heat up? Things that you're normally going to be doing. You might as well test that out in there, or really make sure, you talk to your inspector about that, or things you can do.
Well, from a buyer's perspective, if they do go into a house and they do check the water pressure, let's say, right? And let's just say it's not up to par. Can they, they fell in love with the house. They love everything about this house, but the water pressure is terrible. Is there a way that they can try to work that into their...
Well, I would never tell somebody to break the law and have a plumber break into the shower head or the faucet and open it up and take that filter out. Or I would never suggest anything like that at all. So that's one thing you can't do, right?
Sure.
But there are things you can do. There's different types of, talk to a plumber about different types of system, how fast it gets there. If you get a tankless water heater, that is terrific. That makes a huge difference, because your hot water will stay on all the time. And so there's different types of systems to do that will speed things up.
And then we have on the list here, we talked about multiple exposures. We talked about, did we talk about seeing it at night? Seeing the home at night?
Yeah, seeing it at night is a big deal. It's going to have a different perspective. You're living in your house every day at night. You might as well see it at night. One thing is, sometimes a home is in a spot where it gets a lot of traffic. Are the headlights coming at you? Or is there anything else in the yard? But you're in the house at night. You're going to be living in there. It's a completely different, viewpoint. We do night shots for every home that we do, so at least the buyer can visualize it that way. And sometimes it's really, things are very pretty at night. But you look at it differently at night, and it's not a bad idea to. It's an imposition on the seller to a certain degree. But if you're serious about it and you want to come by and just spend 15 minutes there, I think this is a major purchase that you're making. It's a worthwhile thing to do, to look at it at night and see how it shows.
Yeah, I guess just take a drive down the street, see, and maybe see what the neighbors are like too. Maybe it's a crazy neighborhood where
I
there's
think the
parties.
neighbor thing I think the neighbor thing is completely overrated. We moved in, and this guy across the street, he comes up to me, he was like, "Who are you?" I'm the new neighbor. I'm Jeff. And well, there was a weirder one with Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi called Neighbors back in the '80s. But it's this guy's like, "Well, who are you?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm a professor at Harvard. I went to Harvard." And he's just going on and on about this. I'm like, and then I have another guy who comes in and he's telling me to stomp, I need to water the lawn today. And like, I got to go to work right now. And then I come back, he's watering the lawn. And it was like a nightmare for a little bit, but it wasn't that bad. You just don't, if you got strange ones, you don't converse with them, and it's always interesting. We have terrific neighbors, now that we've got some really good friends, and the reason I say neighbors are going to come and go in your tenure. You've got no control. You may move. I remember when my daughter went to JMS, there was this debate teacher one of the reasons she went there, she still would have went there. Yeah. But the third day of school, the debate teacher left. Oh. He's gone. She did like a week. And then you're still there at the school. And it worked out really well. But that was she really liked that particular teacher. You may move because you like your neighbor, and your neighbor, they got things going on. They're going to move. They're going to come and go. You're going to get good neighbors, bad neighbors, quiet neighbors, whatever. So I would never buy the house based on the neighbors, but you can gather information from the neighbors.
Sure.
And the neighbors can tell you something like what's the neighborhood like and things like that. Well, but if you like the neighbor or don't like the neighbor, I wouldn't get overly crazy with it, with who the neighbor is.
The only thing I worry about, and I don't want to get into political debate, but I'm talking about, I'm an Eagles fan, and I'm going to move into a neighborhood and there's all Cowboys flags all over the neighborhood. It might be one of those neighborhoods I'd be like, well, let me think. There's Cowboys fans everywhere. I may not want to live in this neighborhood. I'm not using politics. I'm using a different example for that. Just because, maybe it is a neighborhood where people see that. What would you say to a homeowner, seriously, if someone has and I get into politics, but I'm using sports for the reference, if they do have flags and all these banners in front of their house, take it down for the time being when they're selling their home? Like, don't advertise something that you may offend another person or turn them off from buying that home?
It should always be that way anyways. And these things go hot and cold depending on political season and stuff like that, or football season. There's an article I read the other day. A guy painted his house in Buffalo Bills colors.
I saw that.
Jets fan.
I saw that.
I don't know if you saw the picture.
I did, yeah.
It's hilarious.
I saw it.
And they had good fun with it. I drove through a neighborhood the other day and I saw both political sides on both sides of the street. And I thought it was great because everybody's making their statement, but it was like a 50-50 thing, and everybody's getting along with it. And that's how it should be. I wouldn't get overly upset. I mean, people can when you're in an election year or get into different emotions, but does that play any role, do you think? Oh, when you're selling house, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because people get overly emotional on things. I mean, just think about Twitter or Facebook, and they're making a comment that they shouldn't make. They can't help themselves, and then 10 minutes later, like, why did I do that? How can I erase it? Sure. Can I go back?
Sure.
The reason is though, and when you're selling your house, and you don't want your realtor to be anything when they're selling your house. You just want them to be neutral. Because if a realtor if they're going way off the deep end on the Republican side or the Democrat side or this, that, and the other thing, and you could turn somebody off.
Sure. And
when you're selling your house, you're not going to care whether or not the person is a Republican or Democrat. It's show me the money, you're leaving, and you're not going to take an extra $50,000 from somebody because they're the same party affiliation as you. And you could get somebody else, they look in a house and they're looking at your books or they're looking at this, and they make some, dumb, determination about that. It doesn't always matter, and for a lot of people it doesn't, but you'd be surprised. So I think the more would you go into a new home construction, and there would be, they don't have, when you go to, Alton or whatever's new construction, that you're going to go to, you don't have Fox News or MSNBC blaring in the background. You don't have a book on, on Donald Trump or Barack Obama out there. They don't put that there when they're staging it. That's not part of the conversation.
Yep.
It's little babies and
dogs.
And happy faces and dogs and things like that. And you're selling your house. That's really what you want to be. You want to be doing. You just want to sell the house. You don't want to get into a whole political or whatever discussion. The football thing, though, doesn't matter so much. That's always in good humor, and that's how we should always treat everything.
So, and then, one of the last things you have on here is the little things. Look at the little things. What are the little things? I know you said about driveways.
Well, but before that, there's one other thing to get into, which is raining.
Oh, rain.
And raining is really important. And the inspection is great, because if you have a leak, the leak's going to show after a good rainstorm. And you can't always time this when you're looking at a house. Rain does another thing too, though. There's pieces of the house, especially in the backyard and in the front, and especially the swale of the driveway. Ever see those driveways at the end where they fill up with water?
Yep.
You only really pick that up after a good rain, and you'll get an idea if you need to put additional work in for drainage or other things. So rain, and then also when it's rainy, it's going to be darker and drearier. So you can see if you like the house that way. So that's why a rainy day is a good day to see, a house. There's other reasons, just because of dark and dreary, to see it, because you want to see where water is sitting or what it's doing when you're in there. Little things can be like, you've got to think about how you're going to use the house later on. If you had, like, we have a short driveway. So when we bought the house, our son was, I think, 3.5. I wasn't thinking about at the time, what happens when, he's 22 and Jade is 17, and we've got 4 cars. Oops.
Yeah.
And so that was not in. So it's a piece. Would we have still bought the house? Yeah, but I wasn't thinking about it. It was so far into the future. So how is this going to look 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Usually you do move every 7-9 years. And we bought our house. We bought a 4-bedroom instead of a 3. If we had bought a 3, we would have had to move. But it was we bought the house size wise, but the driveway is not the perfect size. You also, when you're coming to Florida, you don't have you don't have a basement, so you need more space. So getting into the little things can be, how are your cabinet space? Is there enough storage space? You're not going to have room for your pool table that you had up north. Your garage is going to fill up really quickly with stuff. Our basements are our garage, like you saw in the other house. Yeah. That matters. But open the cabinets in the kitchen. Are they deep? Is there enough in there? For you? Go through different pieces and visualize how you're going to use it. How is it going to work for you 10 years out? Do the stairs work for you with the master bedroom upstairs 10 years? Or is that you may be at one age where it's not an issue, maybe another age it will be. So it depends. If you're 25 and you're buying with the master bedroom upstairs, it's not going to matter. If you're 65 or 70 and you're maybe it's fine now, but what's going to happen at 85? So you want to think about those things as you're going through, and then paying attention to lots of little things throughout the house that you just keep your eye on it. Look for storage. Look for how you're going to be using it. How you're going to be using your office. In there, is there going to be a surprise? So if you can think how you're going to use it, you'll start to pay attention to some of the little things.
This is a great checklist to have, because some of these things I would never even think about even doing, and it can mean the difference in selling your home at the price that's just, I guess, right? Because if some of these things don't line up, you may not get that price for that home. Am I right in saying that? I mean, is that something that?
Yeah, the staging. When everybody wants to know right away, like, what's their house worth, and they click on a button, and Zillow says, Zillow said that's the
Zillow.
And I always say to somebody, when Zillow came out to your house, Rob, what did Zillow think of it? What did the rep? What they say?
Yeah, Zillow
And
is all
every
that.
one of them has to think about it. Honey, what did the Zillow person say when they came out? And the answer is they didn't. They never came to the house. They're just throwing a number out of it, out
Guesstimate.
of an algorithm.
Yep.
And the Zillow doesn't know how your yard shapes. Zillow doesn't know if you replace the roof. Zillow doesn't know if you put in a new $50,000 kitchen. Zillow doesn't know if it's a red wall or a white wall or how you've staged it. So there can be, I've seen swings on Zillow of up to 35%, plus or minus.
Wow.
And you cannot rely on it. Staging can net you, in a lot of cases, anywhere from 5 to 15% from properly staging it. I mean, rarely do you walk into a house and it needs no staging. There's usually, and sometimes even the best staged homes, there's pieces a good realtor with a good eye is going to pick up for you. There's a whole series of basics that you look for in staging, and there's a lot of art to staging. There's an entryway art. We've done a video on that. I think I have 13 or 14 pieces in there. We need to do an after on that house as well. Mm-hmm. But the one that we did, but that's one piece, to staging. And then there's staging when you're walking in, and then there's and then different rooms have different staging things that you can do with it. And then you measure, is it going to be a good return on my investment or a poor return on my investment? So sometimes you don't need to go overboard with these things, but there's little things you can do, especially, and you'll get people. Sometimes I take out landscaping. Somebody puts landscaping in because they didn't want to see the golf course, and that bothered them, and they put in and they liked the view of something, so they blocked out something. And I'll come to the house and it's been sitting for 6 months, and it's like, you need to take out that hedge that you put in. Mm-hmm. And they've gotten their money, $3,500 or $5,000 in it, and I like looking at it. I don't like looking at the golf course. It doesn't matter what you like or you like looking at. It's like, what is your majority of your buyers going to like when they buy the house? And if there's a premium on that, and you want the premium still because it has a golf course view, but you don't want to show the golf course view, but the buyer can't see the golf course view, they can't buy a bucket of paint. And I'll tell them to buy a bucket of paint and they can paint it. You also run into people, though, who have, how do I say this? Not the best taste, or it's not important to them. Mm-hmm. And those people have a lot of trouble with it, because if it's not important to them or they can't see it, then they also think that the rest of the world looks the same way that they do. And it's not that way. The rest of the world, you've got an artistic person who is really good at visualizing something, doesn't want to paint it for him because they think the rest of the world can visualize it the way they do. So a lot of it is you have to talk to people and really help them. That's why I bring somebody to the front door and I have them get on their tippy toes or go down, because they need to see it from a perspective that they haven't looked at it since they've bought the house. And then once the seller understands it, they'll stage it. But you've got to reverse it when you're buying it and look at it in a different light from how's it really going to look when you walk in there, and how's it going to look with your furniture in there when you put all your stuff in there? Is it going to change it?
But it's a hard, and I guess for sometimes, like you said, the bushes that they put up to block the golf course view that they didn't like, maybe they spent $7,000 on those bushes, so it's a hard thing to tell them to get rid of them or cut them. But if that's what's going to sell the home and that's what you're showcasing, you just need to do it.
I had one home in Marisol in the Vizcaya Estate section, and it was on the market for a year, and the realtor who had it didn't do any aerials, and it had these tall bushes out in the back of the house. I walked in the house, and there was a bunch of other staging that we did in the house, little things that probably were about a couple grand at the time, I remember. But the biggest thing was, and it was hard to get them to do it, was to take everything that they put out. After a year, when a house is on the market a long time, they'll listen to you. When you go through normalized markets, homes that don't have everything on all cylinders, they sit. Sure. You can be in a whole seller's market. It doesn't, right now but even you're going to get, even in the seller's market, so I can sell my house really fast. You're not going to get maximum value out of it unless you stage it properly and do all the things. So you are leaving money on the table by doing that. But I got them to take out it, and we did an aerial. So an aerial is really important, usually, as your first shot. and I'll see this mistake all the time, because an aerial typically paints the whole picture. You can tell the whole story from an aerial perspective, whereas a front shot you can't. Or even a back shot, just of showing like a lake view, you don't see the whole view and how everything lays out. So it's like, I saw an aerial the other day and it was all closed in. Our back shot was too closed in. Your first picture is really important. But the staging, that all that needed to do. The other stuff that we did was a few things inside to make it more of an empty palette. But once we took the hedges out, two things happened. One, it lightened up the house. Your view became much deeper on the back end. It wasn't closed in, because it's an optical illusion the farther you can see. And then you saw this beautiful lake view. So all that had a lot to had. I think it cost them, 75 to 100 grand by not having it staged properly, and it didn't move.
Wow.
Buyer could not visualize what it was going to look like if the hedges were down. Couldn't see it.
And that's what it is. It's that image. It's, McDonald's doesn't just put a crappy looking commercial of a burger that's sloppy and doesn't look good. They put this burger on that's, just you want to go through the screen and grab it and eat it, because that's the image. That if they put a bad image out there, people are clicking the channel, or they're not even going to McDonald's to get that burger. It just doesn't look good.
There's a movie everybody used. There's a movie that everybody used to use, and I talk about this with sellers all the time, and I'll play it for them so they can. A lot of it's psychological, helping getting your sellers over this on staging, because they're going to spend some money on it, or a lot of them just asking them to move things. They don't want to move things because they like the house the way it is. And there was this movie called Searching for Bobby Fischer. You ever seen that?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it. No, I've heard of it.
Great movie. You should watch it with your kids. And Bobby Fischer was this chess protege.
Yes. I haven't seen it.
And was a chess champion and stuff. So Searching for Bobby Fischer was a movie about chess. You wouldn't think and starred Ben Kingsley, and it was this chess protege, this little kid that they found, and his teacher was Ben Kingsley, and the kid was having trouble getting to the next step in the teaching. And Ben Kingsley, and the kid said, I just can't see it. I can't see the move. But Ben Kingsley takes his arm, and all the chess pieces go flying all over the place. And all of a sudden, all the moves were able to visualize by clearing it and creating an empty palette. Now he could see the move. That was like the final piece for him, to getting to another level of chess, where he didn't have all this visualization in front of him, and he could move to another level. That's really what you're doing. You're letting somebody's brain operate so they can see it the way they need to see it. And so I'll play that a lot of times, and I send them that little clip to help them understand on staging why it's important and why you need to do what you need to do. Because once your client understands it on the selling point, then they get into it, and they'll do all sorts of different
and
things.
I think that's the perfect thing with having yourself and the agents at Echo Properties is to help with that, because not everybody can. They're not good at visualizing or seeing things. So showing them, like you said, and making them say, if we take this furniture and move it here, or move this out, or paint this wall a lighter color, or drop down the bushes, it could increase your home value, or get you what you're looking to get, instead of it's sitting on the market and losing out.
And even if it sells right away, you may have an A house or a B house, and you get in a seller's market, and say, well, I don't need to stage, it's going to move. It's the money that you're leaving on the table, because you could put that house in Mirasol on without the same house I'm talking about in a seller's market. It might go right away, but you're still missing out on the people who are going to see the most value out of it. So if somebody puts it on, and then it sells for 7, 10%, 5% less than it would have if it was properly staged. You're always trying to get the most value out of your house, whether you're in a buyer's market or a seller's market. And you always want to get the most money on it, not leave, lots of money on the table. And staging has a lot to do with that. And conversely, looking at it through a different lens, and making sure you're making the right purchase, is going to has a lot to do with it as well. Today, a lot of the goal is to look at it through the buyer's lens and see what they see, so you're not buying something that you're not you're not supposed to see. Yeah, I love these. I love these.
Is that the buyer's lens or the seller's lens? I have both on.
You do have you do have both.
Seeing
You
the
do have both.
home, seeing the home, and there are two faces to a home, as we just learned through this edition of Real Estate Roundtable. The link, folks, to the blog is in the comment section and above in the post. So go check out the blog. There's some great tips on there. There's some previous real estate roundtables that we've done. We do these every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. So join us. There's some great tips for homeowners. If you're selling your home, if you're looking to buy, and you can always contact Echo Fine Properties, 561-500 ECHO. That's Echo. Or you can get in touch with Jeff. I don't know what he's in the TV screen right now.
Look at this. There's different filters here. That's pretty cool.
There's a lot of different filters we've learned for Zoom now. But seriously, check out our website, www.echofineproperties.com. There's so many tools on there. There's 3D Matterport tours that we do for every one of our listings. That's a virtual tour where you walk through the home and you can look all around as if you're actually there. We do listing videos for all of our listings, night shots, real-time night shots, photos on all of our listings. You can search by lifestyle. There's just so much. I can be here for another hour going through all the things on our website. So check it out, www.echofineproperties.com. Jeff, I think that does it. I think we've graduated.
Yeah, we've graduated looking at it from a buyer's perspective.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jeff, as always, and check us back next time for another edition of Real Estate Roundtable.
Sunday at 9 o'clock, it's Real Estate Roundtable.
Have a great
So long, everybody.
Have a great day.